A very good evening to our audience. We understand that it's the holiday season and many would be on their year-end vacation. So it's great to see that we have such a good turnout. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Justin and I'll be your moderator for tonight's episode of our Ask Me Anything webinar series. As we are nearing the end of 2023, it serves as a reminder for all of us to check in on our finances to welcome the year ahead. What are some essential tips for year-end budgeting? Are there any insurance and risk management strategies for the year's end? Plus, what are some methods to set meaningful goals for the upcoming year? I'm sure everyone has some burning questions. So may I request that you type your questions in the Q&A button, and the speakers will come to it at the end where we have our Q&A segment. We are also live on Zoom and Facebook. And before I introduce our guests for tonight, I must assure all of you here that there shall be no selling tonight's webinar. We are keeping it completely educational. So let's keep this session lighthearted. Sit back and relax. Enjoy your time here while our speakers share some of the must-haves for your year-end financial checklist. So if you are watching us, please share with your other friends whom you think would benefit from this fireside chat, where you can ask all of your questions about the must-haves in your year-end financial checklist live to our very own financial specialists. Okay, I'm very excited to introduce three of our financial specialists tonight. Each of them have different life experiences and perspectives. So with us tonight, we have Financial Services Associate Director, Dickson. We have Financial Services Manager, Keef Wong, and Wealth Manager, Steffi Teo. So each of them will provide their unique viewpoints for tonight's topic. Okay, allow me to introduce our first speaker, Financial Services Associate Director with 19 years of experience in the financial industry, Dickson. Okay, hi Dickson, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, good evening everyone. Welcome to our year-end financial checklist webinar. Let me introduce myself. I've been a relationship manager in banking, serving retail and high net worth individuals for 10 years before joining Phillip Securities in 2014. In total, I have been in wealth management industry for 19 years, advising clients on protection needs and investment portfolio construction. I look forward to all of your participation tonight. Back to you, Justin.
All right, thank you, Dickson, for the introduction. I'm sure we'll have a lot to learn from you tonight. Okay, next up, we have our second speaker of the night, Keef, our Financial Services Manager. Hi, Keef, would you like to share about yourself to the audience?
Thanks, Justin, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for taking the time for this session. My name is Keef, and I've been enjoying this practice for the last 18 years. I think what I enjoy most about this practice is the relationships that I've been able to build with my friends, as well as the fulfillment in walking this journey with them. So for me, my belief in financial planning is that there has to be a blend of both science, which is the numbers and facts part, as well as the art of it, human psychology. And once you're able to integrate these two elements together, that is when you can actually have a successful financial plan. Thanks so much, Justin.
Oh, interesting. Thank you, Keef, for the wonderful introduction. I'm sure our audience will get to know you better as we move along for tonight's session. Last but not least, we have our wealth manager, Steffi, our female speaker of the night. Hi, Steffi. Please say hi to the audience.
Hello, everyone. Steffi here. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm really excited to be the only female panelist tonight and possibly maybe the youngest in terms of maybe age in the industry, maybe. That said, I've been in this field for about maybe 13 years now and 3 years in the banking sector and nearly a decade with Phillip. So really grateful for the opportunity to be able to get engaged in wealth planning on the Phillip platform. It's a space where we can offer an extensive range of service and products, empowering clients to customize their portfolios and tailoring strategies to grow alongside them. Looking forward to spending the evening together. See you.
Thank you, Steffi, for the introduction. We are happy to have you with us tonight. And I'm sure our audience will get to learn a lot from you too. Okay, all right. That's the introduction of our guest tonight. So before we start our first question of the night, let's look at this article from the Business Times. So this article published just last week on 6 December. The headline goes, CPF interest rates for special MediSave and retirement accounts raised to 4.08%. Dickson, would you please explain to our audience a little bit about this article and share how does this affect us?
Sure, Justin. Let me summarize the article. The CPF board just announced last week that our special and MediSave accounts will generate interest of 4.08% from January to March next year from the previous 4.04%. Now, for those of you who already hold the retirement account, the interest rate of 4.08% will also be accorded to you. However, there's no change in the CPF OA of 2.5%. Now, let me elaborate a little bit more on the article we've just shared. Now, if you're looking to enhance your CPF OA and SA funds, do be aware that there are various investment instruments out there available to us to invest. Now, for example, there's Singapore government securities, there's exchange-traded funds, there's treasury bills, there's unit trusts, annuities, and endowment plans. Now, you'll be wondering, the universe is so wide. How do you decide which investment instrument is most suitable to you? Now, first of all, determine your own personal risk profile. Are you someone who can take a little bit more risk, balance, or low risk? Then look at what is your own investment objective. What is your desired rate of return? Last but not least, what is your investment time horizon? After all these considerations, narrow down the various investment instruments options. Finally, choose the one that is most suitable to your needs. Back to you, Justin.
Okay, I see. Thank you, Dickson, for sharing the importance of the article and shedding light on the various investment options available to us. I'm sure we'll have more to uncover this evening. Okay, before we get our speakers to start answering our questions, let's start by finding out a little bit about our audience today by doing a little poll. So I will flash and read the poll right now. What is your biggest reason for attending this webinar? Is it seeking guidance for a robust end-of-year financial plan? Learning tips for your year-end budgeting? Or are you here for insights on effective tax planning and investments? Or updating insurance and risk management strategies for the year's end? Or lastly, exploring methods to set meaningful financial goals for 2024. If you are on Facebook, you can comment in the chat box on your answer. And if you're on Zoom, just simply click on the answer. We shall wait 1 to 2 minutes for the results to come in. Right, let's see what the audience think tonight. Just a little bit more. Okay, it looks like most of our audience chose exploring methods to set meaningful financial goals for 2024, followed by quite a big gap, followed by insights on effective tax planning and investments. Okay, I think we will definitely address that tonight. Yes. Okay, let's move on. Okay, now let's start off with our first question of the evening. What are the must-haves in your year-end budgeting process? Dickson, would you like to get the ball started?
Sure, Justin. Now, first of all, do an income assessment. You would like to evaluate what are your various income sources for the coming year. Next, for your expenses assessment, review the current year's expenses. You may want to identify certain areas that you can minimize spending on. Then do a forecasting for the coming year's projected expenses. Now, next, do remember to set aside your emergency funds, about 3 to 6 months of easily accessible liquidity. Now, for your debt management, in view of the current high interest rate environment, you may want to review outstanding debts and then ascertain, do you have excess cash that you can maybe pay off or pay down your outstanding loans, i.e. your mortgage or maybe your car loans. Now, last but not least, for tax planning, do remember to contribute to your SRS to enjoy tax savings. Keith, you would like to touch on a little bit more on this topic?
Sure, thanks, Dickson. So when we talk about year-end budgeting, right, you must first know what it means to budget. So to me, budgeting is simply to have a plan in allocating our resources. But I think the challenge for most people is to stick with the budget. That's why for me, before moving on to create a new budget, we must first identify how we have fared in this current year. And one of the ways we can do that is first taking stock of our financial position. So some of the ways we should take stock is, first we can ask ourselves, have we been able to save? And if you have been able to save, have your assets actually been increasing or no change? Of course, we can also see things like, has our income increased? Because once you have clarity on your financial position, you can then identify the issues which have been preventing you from sticking to your budget. And then from there, we can resolve the problem. So another idea which I do share with my friends is that, very interesting, right? End of the year, so most of us will be having our bonuses. Now, the question is that when these monies show up in our accounts, right, how do we feel about it? Do I see it as a way of rewarding myself? Or do I see it as an opportunity to speed up the process of achieving my goals? Now, for me, if the bonuses are excess, right, I will definitely encourage my friends to accumulate the monies because it will create a positive psychological momentum, and that will want to keep a person and keep on accumulating. So these are my 2 points. Over to you, Steffi.
Thank you, Keith. Cannot emphasize enough, right? So I think to add on to your point, I think for budgeting, for me, the first point is very, very important. I cannot emphasize that it's very, very important to conduct a yearly cash flow statement to actually take note of what you have been spending for the year. This process ensures that you have a clear understanding of where the money has been going throughout the year. It also gives you insight of how you can actually optimize allocations in the coming year. You must also, when you do this, you must also remember to account for one-off expenses like travel, gifts, and one-off inflows like bonuses. Secondly, besides the cash flow statement, you must also try to sit down and anticipate what are the changes that might come in the next year, and consider the major, maybe expense changes like traveling or changes in marital status. With that consideration of the cash flow and what is likely to happen in the coming year, you can then craft a budget that aligns with your financial goal. Then besides that, you also need to allocate funds for things like savings, investment, and even emergency cash. Yeah, I think for me, that's it. Back to you, Justin.
Hey, thank you, Dickson, Keef, and Steffi, for sharing your valuable insights on year-end budgeting. It's clear that a comprehensive approach would include assessing income, reviewing and minimizing expenses, ensuring your liquidity with an emergency fund, managing debts wisely. And I also think what Keith mentioned on the psychological momentum is also very true. And Steffi, your practical steps, especially doing a cash flow statement and budgeting for specific needs, I think that would definitely be helpful for some of us here. Those were really great tips to guide us in navigating our year-end financial planning. Okay, now let's move on to our next question. How do I prioritize expenses and identify must-haves when reviewing our financial plan? Keith, would you like to go first?
Sure, thanks, Justin. So now when we talk about prioritizing expenses, again, I think the challenge for most people is not that we don't know that we must save, or not that we don't know we must spend lesser, right? It's just that we are emotional beings and we all have our wants. So there's a saying that goes, right? We spend first with emotions, then justify with logic. So emotions, many at times, override our logic, which is why one thing I do encourage my friends to do on how to remove emotions out of this equation is by automating our spending patterns. So I give an example, right? What my friends can do, or what I do encourage them first, is identify in their cash flow what are some of the outflows that are fixed. So by fixed, I don't mean variable. Every month, these amounts, these items will surely go on, same amount, right? You also notice that most of these amounts are usually through gyro. So you identify these fixed items first. Then the next basket, identify what is the amount or the percentage that you like to save or invest or whatsoever. Okay, so this is the next basket. Now, if you are able to visualize the outcome, we get our income. Once our income comes in, all the fixed item goes out already, be it through gyro or whatsoever. Then the next basket comes, which is our savings, our investments. You can see that whatever that is left is what I consider as money that we can spend freely. Now, with this system, right, we can balance between planning for our objectives, yet still being able to enjoy our wants without any, to me, very important, emotional repercussion. Okay, so this is just one of the ways. Okay, over to you, Steffi.
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, building on your insight on spending patterns and gyroing, maybe let's delve more into like categorizing and detailing our expenses into the fixed and variable categories. I think that's quite important because when you do that, then you are able to see what are your fixed. These are your non-negotiables that you must things that we die must have. Think your mortgage payments, your insurance, your utilities, school fees, and the likes. And on the flip side, you were saying variable expenses, right? Those are the ones that rather than the needs, this includes like things like dining out, shopping, gifts, holidays. These are areas that we often have more flexibility. So when you do that, then you can see exactly what are the expenses are. And here's where it gets real now. You must actually keep a record of your cash flow. Again, back to cash flow statement. It's crucial when you when you don't know where the money is going, right? Then this is the most important. So I think for us, we all have smartphones and there's an app for just about everything, right? So maybe we can also consider using one to track our spending habits for a month or two. It might actually surprise us on how much or how small insignificant expenses can actually add up for our expenses. Yeah. So over to you, Dickson.
Thanks, Steffi. To add on to Keith and Steffi's point, right, I have quite a simple method. What I would suggest is to itemize a list of all your monthly expenses. You get a total summation of all these items. Then you start listing down which are the essentials that you pay off. I call it the must pay, like for example, your rental, your mortgage, utilities, your food. Next, you want to look through items you have to pay off. If not, you may result in getting bad credit reports or even interest incurred. So for example, like your credit card bills. Now do bear in mind, interest rate on our bank credit cards is running at 27%. So I can't stress enough to pay off your outstanding credit card bills promptly. Back to you, Justin.
Okay, thank you, our wonderful speakers. I must say that, being someone who enjoys spending money way too much, hearing all these emphasis on having a detailed approach to itemize and prioritize our monthly expenses and balancing needs and wants, and also Keith's suggestion of automated spending patterns and doing it gyro. I'm feeling stressed, I'm not gonna lie, but yes, I think it's very important to also gain clarity on our spending habits. Yeah, I think it's quite important. Okay, let's move on to the second poll of the night. I will flash and read out the poll right now. So what is your biggest concern when it comes to managing your finances at the end of the year? Is it budget and expenses? Is it insurance? Is it investments? Is it emergency fund and savings? Or is it reflection and goal setting? If you're on Facebook, simply comment your answer. And if you're on Zoom, just click on your answer and we shall wait for the results to come in. All right. Wow, another big gap. Okay, so most of you, 48% of our audience tonight chose investments, followed by reflection and goal setting, followed by budget expenses and emergency fund and savings. Okay, so we will definitely touch on investments. I think we have some questions that we want to ask our speakers later on. Right, let's move on for our next question. What key elements should I consider when assessing year-end insurance coverage? Dickson, would you like to go first?
Sure, Justin. Now, first of all, has there been any major life changes for you this year that will affect your coverage? So, for example, was there a childbirth? You got married? You did a house purchase? So you would have to provide coverage for these. Then next, is it adequate? What I mean by adequate is, is the coverage sufficient based on your current needs? Then I would recommend also to do an annual medical checkup to assess whether your current health condition will affect your health insurance coverage as well as your premium. Now, last but not least, and probably the most important, is ensure you have sufficient budget to address any changes in the plans or your premium commitment for the coming year. Next to you, Keith.
Thanks, Dickson, for very comprehensive points. I only have just one point to add on. I think over the years, I've seen how insurance instruments are constantly evolving. So in addition to just assessing based on needs, to me, it will also be good to assess the type of instrument that we have, whether we are overpaying for them or whether even the functionalities of such instruments are still suited for us, especially in this changing product landscape. So this is maybe just one point for me to add on. Over to you, Steffi.
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, maybe for me then, let me just add on how do we know that we have adequate insurance, it's a very big word, adequate, right? So for me, insurance, as you know, is essentially about managing risk. And the question about how much coverage we need boils down to how much we want to safeguard against. To simplify this, I always guide my clients through these 5 crucial points, which is number 1, medical expenses. Are we sufficiently covered in the event that unfortunate event of hefty medical bills happen? Number 2, living expenses. If for any reason we are suddenly unable to work, do we have enough financial support to cover our day-to-day living expenses? Number 3, final expenses. These are the costs that arise when we pass on, including tax liabilities, final rights expense, and other related costs. Number 4, loan liabilities. Are there significant loans on the table that we wouldn't want to burden our family with in the event that we are absent, or in the event that we go? Number 5, human economic value. This is the value that we bring to our family, while we are alive. An intangible yet crucial factor. It represents how much they stand to lose if we are no longer around. So around these 5 factors, think about what is it that we want to safeguard, and then how much do we need based on them. And then you align your income and expenses with your existing coverage. Then you can see whether you have adequate or not. Yeah. Back to you, Justin. Yeah.
Thank you, speakers, for shedding light on the critical aspect of financial planning. I think Dickson provided very insightful points such as addressing life changes and monitoring health conditions. And yes, as Keith mentioned, it is also important to review evolving insurance instruments. I think this might require the help of a financial advisor. So yeah, and also thank you, Steffi, for highlighting the essence of insurance as risk management, and also outlining for us the 5 key pointers. Yeah. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, when it comes to wills and beneficiaries, what do our speakers consider the must-haves for the year end? Who would like to go first? Anyone?
Shall I go first?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think first of all, we need to ascertain, do we actually need to write a will now? So for our audience, right, look at your current life stage. For example, you consider a 25-year-old single, still accumulating and building wealth, vis-a-vis a 35-year-old with assets and married with kids. So the 35-year-old family man will definitely need to write a will now, make a nomination of beneficiaries in the event unforeseen circumstances should arise. Now, for those of you who already have a will, I would advise to do the following. Number 1, has there been any further accumulation of assets this year? For example, maybe there was an inheritance, a big windfall in assets. Do an updating of your asset inventory. Now, next, in your list of beneficiaries, which you have already done, do you need to amend, or is there a need to amend the allocation of the distribution of assets? Further to that, do you need to also add on beneficiaries, for example, because the birth of a child? Now, next, you also need to address the issue of debts and liabilities. Now, you have to remember, they do not disappear into thin air when you're not around anymore. So there has to be a need to account for this. Now, last but not least, just ensure that you have made a careful appointment of a trusted person to be your executor. Keith, would you like to add on a little bit more?
Yeah, I think, Dickson, you already covered most of the technical points, if not all. So I guess for myself, I'll share more on the why as to why I did my own will. I hope my considerations in my thought process will help everyone over here. So I think that I guess when you talk about the will, right, for most people, including myself, usually there's not much urgency to look into this, right? Because unlike investing or some other aspects, right, it doesn't seem to affect our finances directly. Or maybe you might be thinking, actually, I got no assets to leave behind, right? The reality is that as we age, the concerns of walking out of life also starts to become real. And then that's where I'll start to think and worry, right? So what helped me to make a decision to do up my own will? Very simple. My belief is that when I'm around, when times are good, I want to do my best for myself as well as the people around me. And in the event where I'm no longer around, I also want to do my best, right? But at least leaving behind a considerable estate. And of course, minimizing issues and challenges for the family during the distribution process. So that's just to help you understand the why behind do the will or my will. Thanks so much, Dickson. And maybe over to Justin.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thanks, Dickson, for your practical advice and also breaking down of the considerations. And also thanks, Keith, for highlighting how wills are often overlooked by many. Yeah, it's quite true. Okay, now let's move on to our next question. What are the must-haves do our speakers prioritize in assessing your year-end investment portfolio? This was the one that the highest number of chosen when it came to the poll just now. Maybe Dickson, would you like to go first?
Keith, can you go first? Come back to you.
Oh, sure.
Okay, Keith.
Sure. Okay, so for me, I think there are two key points which I can share with everyone. My first point is that in the allocation of my friend's portfolio, or when I talk about deciding on a portfolio, I want to ensure that ask myself, is it aligned with my client's objectives? Is it aligned with their time frame, their expectations, and more importantly, macro conditions? So I quote an example, right? Example in this current climate, if we expect interest rates to remain, right, and possibly even be reduced, especially if yesterday's FOMC meeting, right? We could be expecting a shift in fund flows. So using a client's example, if my client has a long-term horizon in holding on to their portfolio, having some or maybe a little position in equities would be helpful for them to ride through this momentum, right? But likewise, if my client's objectives has changed towards a more shorter-term horizon, then the question is, from an investing or planning aspect, should my clients be allocating their portfolio into safer assets? Which is why, to me, most importantly, everything should still start from the client's objective. So that's the first point. The second point is, this one is more personal because regardless of internal conditions, meaning a person's personal finances, or external conditions, which is a market situation, I'll tell my friends to continue to accumulate as much as possible. Reason, continuous accumulation is a sure way to ensure momentum and hedge against emotional turbulences. So that's my advice or that's why I share with my friends. Okay, so maybe back to you, Dickson.
Yes. Thanks,
okay.
Keith. Now, for me, when I do my year-end investment portfolio review for my clients, right, one key factor that I always ask them would be, has there been any change in your initial goal? So, for example, due to maybe an advancement in age, the risk profile is probably a bit lesser. It has been scaled down from capital appreciation to the point of capital preservation. So that's the first thing I ascertain. The next one would be, the next review point I look at is the initial investment desired goal versus the current investment portfolio performance. Now, as an investor, you would want to know, what are the underlying reasons for underperformance or even overperformance? Now, second point would be, is there a need to change the risk class allocation because of a change in risk appetite? Now, last but not least, is there a need also to rebalance the investment portfolio? As we know, because of the evolving and right now the very dynamic economic and geopolitical landscape. Steffi, would you like to touch on a little bit?
Okay. I think maybe I will just try to summarize what the two men has spoken. I think because essentially investment is actually quite a powerful tool to achieve our financial goals, right? Be it wealth accumulation or funding a comfortable retirement, or even just to have a savings or buying a house, that kind of thing. So I think the essential things is to number one, identify your goal clearly and define your purpose of the investment clearly. Then number two will be to align your objective, risk profile, and timeline according to that goal. Then number three, to consider market conditions, assess the current market conditions, whether it is still expected to perform the same or not. And number four, to regularly review and adjust so that you can actually make your investments work harder for you in that sense. So I think keeping these principles in mind, we can try to navigate a bit on investments and all that. I think summarizing, I think what the two men has been saying, maybe. Yeah. Back to you, Justin.
Thank you, speakers. I think the common point from all of your sharing on investment that I got was alignment. I hear you guys, you are saying alignment of portfolio allocation with macro conditions, objectives, our risk appetite, timelines, and also even Dickson's comprehensive approach of reviewing all these changing investment goals. I think it's all about aligning them. So thank you. I'm sure you have provided our audience and myself, a well-rounded guide for navigating our year-end investment assessments. Now, let's move on to the next question. So how do you prioritize your emergency funds as a must-have in your year-end financial checklist? Steffi, could you maybe start by telling us, a little bit about emergency funds?
Sure. Okay, emergency fund, as the name suggests, is actually a financial safety net designed to be tapped into when the unexpected occurs. So this can be during an unforeseen accident or mishap requiring an immediate financial attention, or it may be also needed to sustain our living expenses in the event of, let's say, unexpected job loss. In essence, I think it serves as a crucial buffer, providing a peace of mind and financial stability when life takes an unexpected turn. Back to you, Justin.
Thank you, Steffi. Thanks. Now, Dickson, could you maybe share with us what is an adequate amount for us to have for emergency funds?
Yes. I would recommend to most people to set aside about 3 to 6 months of expenses in the event that you need to tap into this source. Keith, would you like to add on to what I've said?
Sure. So maybe I just add on 2 more points to go a little bit more in detail. Many times we have a guideline 3 to 6 months, right? Which is a fair guideline. To go into a little bit deeper on this 3 to 6 months, I will touch on another 2 more points. Job nature, job industry of my friend. Okay, why the job nature or industry? Like what Steffi mentioned earlier, retrenchments is one of the situations where our emergency funds are required. So understanding the job nature and job industry of individual, right, will give a better assessment of what is a proper or better amount to allocate for emergency funds. The second point which I also look at will be the character and personality of my friend. Okay, again, what is the purpose? In the event of retrenchment again, there are some people who say, okay, I want to allocate 3 months of cash reserves, but they are the type where they don't work for too long. Maybe after 1 month, they get very nervous. I need to quickly find a new job. Turns out that within 1 month or so, they can get a new job already. So the 3 months could be over excess rate. And likewise, it could be the other way, where some people, they set 3 months, but they're the type that will take it easy in the event of retrenchment. That will be too little already. So just these 2 points to add, because this will give a more realistic and detailed assessment on determining the amount of emergency funds required. So thanks again, Dickson, and over to you, Justin.
Hey, thank you, speakers. Thank you, Dickson, for your suggestion of having 3 to 6 months worth of expenses set aside for all these unforeseen circumstances. I think right now the key word this time here is balance. So, I think we should have enough to sustain when it comes to spending and also, inflation risk. But we should also have enough to be ready should an emergency were to happen. Touch wood. Yeah. Okay, now let's move on to our final poll of the night, back to our audience. Reflecting on what do you think is most important, reflecting on your financial journey or versus setting goals for the upcoming year, which holds more significance? So is it reviewing your financial past or is it planning for the financial future? Or maybe some of you not sure. So yeah, same thing. If you're on Facebook, just comment, and if you're on Zoom, just click on the answer, and you will wait a while. Yeah, for the results to come in. Wow. Ah. A little bit more. Okay, I think don't need to wait already, quite obvious. So most of you, 88%, chose you guys like to prefer to look forward, look up ahead instead of looking at what the past. So planning for the financial future holds more significance for 88% of you. A small portion chose reviewing your financial past, and 8% we have they are not sure. So thank you for your answers. Okay, let's move on. Okay, let's move on to our next question. Here is can you share your process for setting financial goals for the upcoming year and the must-haves? Speakers, how about Keith? You want to go first?
Okay. I think first things first is we must acknowledge that this goal is what we want to achieve, right? And I'm committed to it. So once this is done, then I would approach it in two forms, right? One is what I call the top-down model. So top-down model means that these friends will focus on the big picture. And the goal is so important to them, they will naturally adjust their expenditure and savings accordingly so that they can achieve objectives. Meaning to say the focus is just on the goal. So for example, if this person needs $250,000 in 5 years, which is 50K a year, this friend will find ways and means to cut their expenses or to save up more just to hit that amount. And the second way is, of course, the other way around. I call it the bottoms-up model. So these friends feel more comfortable to take progressive steps. They can start with a small budget, and then every 6 months, 1 year, they adjust along the way. Both way works because it must resonate with the person. Why? Because only if it resonates with you, then you will take action. And taking action, I think, to me, is the most important. So over to you, Dickson. Yeah.
Thanks, Keith. Now, before you embark on this upcoming year's financial goal setting, I think first thing first would be you want to look back on your past years, whether it's achievement or shortfall, have an understanding why you achieve or you didn't make it. Use it as a guide to set your goals for the following year. Next, you want to categorize the financial goals, be it debt management, maybe do some savings, investments, managing our expenses, or even a combination of all these. Then you want to set a SMART financial goal for the upcoming year. What do I mean by SMART? S-M-A-R-T is an abbreviation for make it specific, make it measurable, make it achievable, relevant, and then set a timeline for yourself. When do you want to achieve this goal? For example, you say you want to save $1,000 every month by the end of middle of the year, third quarter of the year. Now, fourth point, then you prioritize your financial goals. You execute it based on importance, maybe urgency. And last but not least, do conduct regular review for these goals, be it quarterly or semi-annual. And if you do need to make some necessary adjustments, by all means, go ahead. Steffi, would you like to add on to what I just shared?
Okay, don't mind my voice. I'm losing my voice already. Okay, so maybe I will go into a bit more on the importance of establishing clear and concise goals with quantifiable values. I think the key here is to set goals that are not just imaginative, but grounded in our current financial situation. So for me, number one would be to assess your current financial situation again. So you begin by getting a clear picture of your current financial standing, understanding your cash flow and creating an asset and liability statement, And number two, then you go into your goal setting. You break down your goals into small short-term objectives, such as, let's say, saving a specific amount by end of the year. Then going into maybe one or two long-term goals, like planning for the retirement, let's say by age 65. Then you need to have also a holistic view by piecing together both the short-term and long-term goal to provide a comprehensive picture of what's on track and what might be lacking in your financial plan. Then we can sit down and try to come up with workable solutions for set for trying to meet those goals, be it tweaking your cash flow, establishing maybe more short-term savings plan, or going more into different types of investment strategies. By aligning our goals with a current financial reality, then we can actually have effective progress. I feel, it's not just about setting the goals, it's about creating the action plans for those goals.
Thank you, wonderful speakers, for providing such detailed insights into setting our financial goals for the upcoming year. I think regarding commitment and flexibility, as shared by Keith earlier, I'm sure your top-down and bottoms-up strategies would definitely resonate with the diverse preferences and comfort levels of our audience. I think there are people like me who would prefer to take progressive steps. We would definitely prefer the bottoms-up approach. I think collectively, I think the diverse methodologies provided by all three of you, gave us a rich understanding of how to approach and structure our financial goals for 2024. I got thanks Steffi, losing her voice, but gave us a step-by-step guide. Okay, let's move on. So before we move on to the Q&A section, we welcome you, our audience, to connect with PhillipCapital, with any of our financial specialists tonight. They all have something in common, which is that they are very generous in sharing and broadcasting value-added financial tips to their clients and followers. We are also expanding our team. They are expanding their team and welcome like-minded individuals to explore more with them. So, if you want to connect with them, just scan the QR code. Feel free to do that. For those who are enjoying webinars like this one, and if you would like to stay connected with us to receive more updates, give us a like or a follow on our Facebook page. It will be Phillip Wealth. It will be facebook.com/Phillip Wealth Advisory. Okay. Now, for the part that we've all been waiting for, let's get on with our Q&A section. Okay, let me just check the questions. Okay. Okay, we have a question from Dai Tai. Thank you for the question. Regarding the SRS funds, 1, do you contribute yourself? And 2, how do you personally invest it? Example, bonds, equity, or is it a mix? Singapore, US, China equity? What is the percentage-wise? Kindly share your own experience. Okay, how about Dickson? Do you want to take this question?
Sure, Justin. Thanks for your questions, Dai Tai. Now, you asked, do you contribute yourself? So yes, SRS account is personal to us. You can open an SRS account with one of the 3 major local banks, DBS, OCBC, or UOB. It will be in your own name. Now, the main reason you will want to do that is to enjoy tax savings, right? So you can deduct it away from your taxable income for this year. Now, do bear in mind, for your SRS account, it is only going to be able to be withdrawn at retirement age. So if you were to contribute this year, it will be when you reach the age of 63. Now, upon the first withdrawal, you can actually withdraw over a period of 10 years, and only 50% of that will be taxable. Now, the next question that you ask, how do you personally invest, or how do I personally invest it? I don't have a very concrete answer for you. It's really very individual. It depends on a few factors. Number 1, you are trying to reference back to yourself. Now, first of all, what is your own personal risk profile? Can you take higher risk? Or are you a more risk-averse person? Then what kind of rate of return are you looking at after making your own contribution? By the way, the contributing amount is 15,300 maximum if you are local. Now, the last point, time horizon. How long do you have? Now, if let's say you're in your mid-30s right now, you probably have an investment horizon of close to 30 years. So it is long enough. You may be able to structure an investment portfolio. Maybe if you're looking at balanced risk profile, I would be looking at 60% equities, maybe 30% bonds, and 10% alternative investments. I hope I answered your question. Back to you, Justin.
Thank you, Dickson, for answering Dai Tai's question. Okay, we have another very interesting question here. I kind of like this question. It's from Anonymous. What is one of your biggest mistake in your investment journey, and what did you learn from it? Maybe Steffi, share with us, what is one of your biggest mistake in your investment journey? Arrow you.
Okay. I think one of my biggest mistake maybe would be to trying to time the market. I think that's something that I think we all fall prey to, or maybe not say timing the market, but also reacting to the market. Sometimes you see the news and we see like, oh my gosh, this news came in and like market is gonna crash, and sure enough, market went down by don't know how many percentage, and I'm like, sell, try not to keep anymore. And basically, when we react to the market, right, the initial 1-2 days right after the market news comes out, right, is the worst. Because if let's say, it's always by sentiments, right? And when do you go in, when do you come out, and that kind of thing. So I think whenever we invest, try to be rational and try to look at what you're investing in and what is the objective for, right? If this thing is supposedly to be a 5-year investment with a long-term perspective kind of thing, then look at it and ask yourself, does it still make sense? Is it still having the credentials, or having the features that you go into it for, and not just because market crash you want to sell. You sell, then you realize that by the time you sell it, the market has gone back up. So I think this is one of the things when earlier on, when I was, I think, starting out in the industry, you're managing client money and you're like, oh no, I want to follow that kind of thing. But no. I think it goes back down to why are you investing it for? Why do you choose that investment for? And is the fundamentals of that instrument still intact? I'm sorry, I think Justin, back to you.
Thank you. I feel so bad now. You're not in the best condition and I still arrow it to you. But thank you, Steffi, for answering the question. Okay, let's choose another question. Okay, how is your overall investment strategy and how is the return on investment like in the past 3 and 5 years based on your strategy? Okay, can I pass this question to Keef? We haven't heard from you. Yeah. Keef.
Question 2, what is your overall investment strategy? I think overall investment strategy, it really applies to different people, like what Dickson has shared earlier. For me personally, I tend to link back, where I mentioned earlier about linking back to a client's financial plan and objective. What I do is I create a framework. Framework, what do I mean by framework? The portfolio itself, right, must be robust enough to cater to market scenarios. So very importantly, right, I never ever try to time the market, because nobody can tell you that they can time the market. Okay, so the key thing on a framework is the objective of my client. For example, they have to at least have a certain horizon, a long enough horizon. And that's how I do it for my clients. They must have a long enough horizon, meaning to say at least 5 years and beyond. Now, with this kind of horizon, right, in the portfolio itself, I will break up into a couple of baskets. Because the alignment of the portfolio is for a certain time horizon, that allows me to adjust the portfolio in alignment with this time frame. So for example, if I know that I have maybe a 10-year horizon to the portfolio, my client has a 10-year horizon to the portfolio, I won't be too concerned about market volatility in the short term. And that will allow me to allocate maybe a bit more equities into this portfolio, because they can ride out the volatility in this case. Of course, that's where talking to different people, different clients with different objectives matter. That's why when I talk about a framework again, maybe on a planning perspective first, before I even talk about the investment strategy, on the planning perspective first, I need to ensure that my clients have sufficient cash reserves in place. The purpose of this cash reserves, right, is so that when they need money urgently, they won't have a need to touch from the investment portfolio. Right. So if not, people will say that, hey, I need to liquidate my investment because for emergency, and then I liquidate at a time when the portfolio is not doing well. And then they say that their investment is not doing well. May not be the case. It could be a case due to improper planning, not because the investment portfolio is not doing well. Right. So that's one element. Of course, the other element will be the investment portfolio itself, and that's where the strategy is in there. The third element I would tell my friends to set aside monies for opportunity funds as well. Opportunity funds, meaning this will be more of a tactical play. In the main portfolio, I'll create a strategic allocation, maybe of a certain time horizon. Inside, there'll be the mixture of equities. Currently, due to the maybe high interest rate environment, we can have some bonds in there. But on the opportunity funds, that's where if there is any other unforeseen circumstances, we can touch from these opportunity funds to enter into the portfolio even more. So this is just one of the strategy. Of course, it applies for different people. And then I think the other part on return on investment for the past 3 years. To be honest, I've just came into Phillip this year. So this is the year where I've recreated a portfolio based on the direction. So I can't really give a sensing I can't really answer this question based on percentage. But for this year itself, I have a composition of, I hold cash, I keep US equities, I have some China exposure, and the rest are in short-term duration bonds. So the portfolio has been able to hold water pretty well. Of course, we all know what's happening with China. So that's the part where it's not that hit, but it has been able to hold its water quite well. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah. We have another question. Is it important to look into market conditions? Can we really predict it, as we might miss our chances getting in during market opportunities? And what do you do to follow? What do you follow to keep yourself informed? Dickson, would you like to take this question?
Sure, Justin, let me answer the first question. Is it important to look into market conditions? In short, definitely yes. We need to know what is going on around the world. For example, economics, geopolitical risk. So these are interest rate risk. So these are items that or events that are unfolding in the world. We need to know what is going on because there will be an impact on investment portfolios. Now, can we really predict it? I think even famed investor Warren Buffett can't predict what is going to happen. But what these seasoned investors do is they would actually do a modeling or based on what is happening or unfolding in the market conditions and kind of forecast what is going to happen. So I give you an example. Last night was the FOMC meeting. So the Fed Chair Jerome Powell says that, oh, we are going to pause rates, not going to hike anymore. And based on the dot plot, likelihood there will be 3 interest rate cuts next year. Of course, it's a forecast, but based on the unfolding of this event, it will already have an impact on clients' portfolio. So it is very important, as we already mentioned, right? This is year end. It is time for you to look at your current investment portfolio, structure it or rebalance it based on what is going to happen last night after the FOMC meeting. Now, the next question I think our participant asked was, as we might miss our chances getting in during market conditions. As Keef and Steffi has mentioned, it's very difficult to time the market. But if you look at your all the items I've mentioned, your risk profile, your expected rate of return, your time horizon, you can still invest right now. And then lastly, how do we keep ourselves informed? We read very extensively. We keep ourselves informed of what's happening in the markets so that we can advise accordingly based on the unfolding of events. Back to you, Justin.
Thank you, Dickson. Very good explanation. Okay, we have another question here. This one is oddly specific. Would you recommend young investors to purchase their ones like Cinnamoro and Dior? Okay, we don't want Dior to come after us, but or should they save all their income like 先苦后甜? Thank you for the question. Any of the speakers want to take this very specific question? But I think we understand the essence of the question. Any of the speakers want to take? Keef, you want to go?
And sure.
Thank you.
Investor, the keyword is young. I think at the end of the day, right, the thing that is holding most people back from achieving their financial objectives is just this one word, lifestyle, right? If you can manage your lifestyle well and you can still achieve your financial goals, my simple answer to you, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay, the problem comes when a person wants to enjoy life, but yet is far from their objective. So to me, this answer, I hope I've been able to, I mean, it sounds quite simple, right? But actually to go a little bit deeper to this question, one of the issues is, yes, I know I should 先苦后甜. Yes, I know I shouldn't spend. But the actual process of following through with it, I think that is the real challenge for most people. So if I can't follow through with it, then, how should I be balancing it? And that's why I shared earlier that maybe it's better to have a system in place so that you all can balance having your wants as well as being able to still get prepared for your financial objectives. So yeah, that's that. Of course, to be more detailed, usually I will run through with my friends their very detailed cash flow, and knowing them, their wants, their character, I will then highlight to them very specifically on what solution suits them best. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Keith. Sorry. Thank you, Keith. Do you okay, we take another question. I think we are coming near to 9, so we just take another maybe 3 more questions. Do you advise to invest in active fund or passive fund like indices? If invest in active fund, how does it compare to the board market return? Steffi, we haven't heard from you. Would you like to answer this question? If you're okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think maybe the choice between investing in active fund or passive funds like indices depends on various factors, including like investment goals, risk tolerance, as well as preferences. I mean, active funds are managed by professionals, right? So they are fund managers who have different objectives. They try to outperform the market and make decisions based on research, their own strategies, analysis can be like top-down, bottom-up approach depending on the fund manager itself. So there is actually potential for outperformance. It's more about like choosing the right funds, the right fund managers itself. Whereas passive funds are like your index funds, they track benchmarks, correct? They follow, they replicate the performance of specific maybe market index like S&P 500. And do not rely on like active management. Rather they try to like maybe follow or mirror the chosen, let's say, index itself. Typically, maybe it will cost lesser, it will be lower cost to invest in a passive fund. But I think the question, how that and basically which fund you choose depends on what are you investing it for. Again, back to objectives itself, and then how you choose the fund itself. I mean, there can be many active management funds. There can be many passive funds also that follow index or ETFs, and it's back to how you find the one that actually suits you or actually be able to match the objective that you want to when you want to compare the performance of these funds, right, actually the results can vary also. It can be outperformance, it can be underperformance. So yeah, it's very hard to say which is better and how does it compare, because it comes down to what are the things. Maybe what you can try to consider is the fees, the risk tolerance, the time horizon of what you have, and then maybe having it as a mix of strategy to put into your portfolio instead of seeing which is better, which one is better per se. Yeah, I think that's for me.
Thank you. Thanks, Steffi. Okay, I think let's just do a last question. So for young investors, maybe students, I heard ETFs are a good way to gain exposure initially. How would you recommend students or young adults to start for, say, someone with moderate to high risk tolerance? Dickson or Keith, you want to take this question? The last question, yeah.
Okay.
Keith, you want to go? Or Dickson? Please.
Okay. Keith, you can add on to what I'm going to talk about right now. ETFs is a good way to start your initial investments. It is low cost, so you don't have to incur too high fees. But of course, the downside would be there's no active management by a fund manager. So what do I recommend a student or young adult to start with moderate or high risk tolerance? I think we need to conduct a personal risk profile questionnaire for this person. There's no right or wrong answer here, whether it's moderate or high risk. Everybody's risk tolerance is different. Kim, you want to add on a little bit more?
Sure. I think thanks, Dickson. I think the one key element mentioned here is for young students or young investors. So of course, when you talk about students, I think the one key aspect of investing is what is the kind of monies that you have to invest. Right. So chances are maybe you're talking about, it can be maybe allowances, it can be maybe a part-time job, you got some monies. My preferred way, of course, Dickson is a ratio on the ETFs part, but usually when I talk to young friends, right, again, I emphasize on the psychology. Invest, accumulate continuously. So don't worry too much about the amount. Assuming you want to go with ETFs, don't need to worry too much about the amount. The key thing is frequency. Continue to invest bit by bit. $100, $200, it doesn't matter. I will tell all my young friends, if you can, just get started with an ETF or whatever vehicle that you have. Just do small amounts bit by bit. That would help young students build up their portfolio over time, especially when they start working. They will realize that, hey, wow, because I started my investments maybe 3 years ago when I was studying, I have actually accumulated and got a head start in my portfolio as compared to my friends who have just started work. So I thought this will be more on the practical element in addition to using ETFs, which Dickson has shared.
Thank you. Thanks both. Okay, now we conclude our Q&A segment. If you guys have any more, if the audience has any more questions, you can feel free to connect with our speakers, and I'm quite sure that they'll be happy to assist you. Okay, let's move on to the next part. So, okay, I think as we wrap up this insightful session, we just want to hear the final tips from our panelists and what are the top 3 must-haves that our speakers believe everyone should include in their year-end financial checklist. Anyone can go first. Yeah. Maybe Dickson, what is your top 3 must-haves? Yeah.
Sure, Justin. Okay, my top 3, I'll make it really short. Number 1, make your SRS contribution this year. If you haven't already done so, you can enjoy tax relief. Number 2, please conduct your investment and your risky assets annual review to check whether your investment is on track. Last but not least, do your insurance and protection annual review as well. Whether there's any change in your life stage this year, you want to align your coverage with your current needs. Also, you want to be kept updated what is going on in the insurance industry that will affect your personal and even family protection needs. Keith, you'd like to move on to the next point?
Thanks, Dickson. So for me, I have 3 points, 3 R's, and I guess by now most of y'all should understand why I spend a bit more time on the art of financial planning, okay, which is a lot of psychology. My 3 R's, number 1 R, review your financial plan. Okay, reviewing your objectives, your net worth, cash flow, insurance, investments, everything. We all know why we need to review. The issue is it's always very easy to start, but very difficult to follow through. That's why the second R, refresh your purpose. Why do you start planning in the first place? Was it something that triggered you to do something? Something that happened? Refresh and remind yourself, and even better, find someone to be accountable to. And the third point, my third R, renew your paradigm towards money. Is there anything or something about your values or beliefs towards money that has maybe helped you to achieve your goals or caused you to miss your goals? Is there a need to change them? So I just give a quick example. So what do I mean by beliefs or values? A person, right, maybe since young, they don't have much money when they were young. And then they saw their schoolmates, wow, I get to enjoy life so much. So because of that, as they are growing up, ingrained in them is like, okay, when I grow up, I want to enjoy life. So when they go and start work, they start to spend money, and they earn more, they also spend more, right? No matter how much you try to save, they can't save. The issue here is because deep down inside, right, there is value in them, which I don't have a good life last time, so I want to spend more money. So this is the part which I think we have to look into, and my 3 R's to review, refresh, and renew. Thanks. Over to you, Steffi.
Hi, okay. So maybe for mine would be more on going back to how we should do it instead lah. So for me, when you want to do a checklist, when you do a financial checklist, it might seem like a very big daunting task, but I think the key is to take it 1 step at a time. Number 1, I think the most important is time management, and you begin by setting aside a dedicated time to do it. You treat it like your personal year-end resolution session. Allocate the time you need to focus on it. Number 2, I think it's quite important to assess your current situation. If you haven't, I think I said this a few times, create a cash flow statement, asset liability statement. Being accountable for your money is fundamental in any step in our checklist. And then if you want to go even more detailed, best is if you can break down the return on investment of your assets, how much is losing or whatever. Yeah, have it there. Then number 3, goal setting. Having clear, defined goals that are quantifier in manner, include both short-term and long-term objectives. Take time to actually review your current position right now in relation to this goal. I think this 3 steps will try to, should help you with, let's say, kick-starting of your financial, let's say, checklist and financial goal setting itself for next year. Yeah. Back to you, Justin.
All right,
Sorry.
I think
Dickson gone? Yes.
Oh no,
Yeah, I'm
gone
done.
already, all three. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Sorry.
Okay, all right. I mean, those were some great tips from our speakers. Initially, you know, when I gave the speakers this question, I was actually just thinking of one action from each speaker, so just total 3. But our speakers were so enthusiastic that they gave us actually 3 each, and those are really good pointers, even for myself, lah. So I'll just recap again for our audience. Dickson, you know, you stressed the importance of making SRS contributions for tax relief, conducting annual reviews of investments, and also aligning coverage with current needs. Yeah, very important. Keef gave us his 3 R's: review financial plan, refresh our purpose for financial planning, and renew the paradigm towards money. And lastly, I think Steffi encouraged everyone to start on a financial checklist. She kept emphasizing on this tonight, and reflecting on past year's expenses. And there you have it to our audience. You know, myself, I would like to challenge you to start on some of these suggestions from our speakers, also to myself, lah. And yes, as Steffi mentioned earlier, our trusted financial specialists, they are always available to guide you through the process. And having said that, I will flash the last slide again. If you are welcome to connect with any of the 3 speakers here tonight by simply scanning their QR code. I'm sure they will be happy to assist you with any query that you may have. And with that, I believe now we have a much clearer idea on what are some must-haves in your year-end financial checklist. So once again, you may connect with any of our speakers tonight if you wish to understand more. We have come to the end of tonight's session. I would like to give a big thank you to our 3 expert speakers for their unreserved and open sharing, you know, and a big thank you to everyone who has stayed with us thus far. Do join us for future Ask Me Anything episodes as well. We would love to have you again. So happy holidays and have a wonderful, joyous season. Thank you and see you. Good night. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Everyone.
you.
Thanks
You.
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.